I'd now like to call upon Mr. Xerses Sidhwa, Health Office Director, USAID, to share his thoughts on collaborative action and our work as community of practitioners.
Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a pleasure to be here. This has been an exciting day so far, and it's great to see all the old faces and new friends in this room that are really coming together to look at how we work on collaborative action. And I think, Deval and Dr. Kara and the video really kind of set the stage for what we're looking at and what we're trying to do together today. I had a set of prepared talking points, but I may divert from that if my team lets me do that and appreciates that. But I think I was very moved by a lot of the discussions today, and I think looking at this room, we all know the data, the evidence, the magnitude of the problem. And I think one of the things that really struck me today is this role of collaborative action, and I think the video really highlighted. We are all part of isolated islands of excellence, doing, I think, very good work, working with the government to say, okay, does this model go to scale? Does that model go to scale? But it becomes very different and difficult for the government at a certain point to be able to say, you've got this really great education program, you've got this really great sanitation program, this family planning program. How do you really start to bring this together? And I'm very excited that this 10 to 19 collaborative is really trying to look at that multi-sectoral nature. And for all of us in this room that have worked in the development sector, we know that multi-sectoral collaboration is one of the most difficult, challenging things to do ever. And so I think this model is really going to be a testament to what we're trying to do to see how do you make it work. And the idea of this 10 to 19 collaborative, the idea of bringing in different ways of thinking, different partners who have worked in different spaces, who have been able to test different ideas, makes it much more stronger. New ideas, new ways of doing business, also amassing what I think is a really all-star cast of implementing partners, really prime us for success. And I think one of the greatest points for me is just having Dr. Kara sit here today, because all what we try to do at USAID, and I think with the development community, is really ensure that the ideas, the models of what we do really go to scale. And in India, you need the government to really ensure that that scale happens. And so it's really great that the government of India is here today, but even last year when we announced this, but in the middle, as we're doing the work, to make sure that they are ground truthing and testing and saying, does this work, does this not work? If you do it this way, it's more likely to be able to go to scale. And those are very key factors in how we move together and how we look at that journey to success. Because success is going to be very important in such a complicated collaborative like this. But at the same time, and I think Deval mentioned this earlier, success is the gold standard, but I think also what we don't often talk about and what we sometimes try and hide under the rug are the failures. And sometimes those are just as valuable, if not even more valuable. And in something as complex as this, there will be things, models that have been tried, different aspects that may have not been successful. But how do we ensure that we document? How do we ensure that we're telling that story of what is not successful, so that whether they need to be tweaked or whether we just learn from them, that others don't make that same mistake? I think finally for me, one of the most important points is really putting the youth and adolescent at the center. And at USAID, we really do believe that youth and adolescents have to be at the center of all our policy and development programming. We all know that adolescents and youth that are empowered, educated, healthy, civically engaged are huge change makers for their communities and their societies. But the flip is also true. If you have youth that are disillusioned, ignored, marginalized, that can be very destructive for the potential and the growth of a society. And so as we look forward to moving this collaborative forward, as we look at engaging the states, I think, Dr. Kara, what you said is really important. How do we bring in the youth voice? How do we bring in the community and community perspectives to see what's happening and what is really true? And again, India being such a large and complex country, we know that one size will not fit all. We have to ensure that the models we test take into account of the diversity and complexity of India. And even within a state, you will look at different types of models based on the youth that you're trying to work with, based on the composition and makeup of that team. And really, how do you start to engage that community and government at that local level becomes extremely important. And I would be remiss when we talk a lot about youth, for me personally, and I think for USAID, is really putting that emphasis and really spotlighting the role of the adolescent girl. I think we all know the importance of youth in India, but a lot of times across the world, it's the adolescent girl that gets left behind. And really trying to say, what are those unique challenges? Whether it's lack of completion of secondary school, delay, it's getting married early, it's not having access to different types of training programs. How do we look to ensure that adolescent girls are also placed at that center? How do we ensure that we're working again with the family structures and the men and boys around them to ensure that adolescent girls are put in a special place so that they are successful, is going to be very important. And I think what Shailaja mentioned, the discussion of that normative change, while normative change is a very long and difficult process, it is such a critical process for what we're trying to do here with the 10 to 19 Collaborative, and really looking at how do we start to shift those mindsets. And I think these things are happening unevenly in India, but these things are definitely happening, and you can see that with a lot of the government schemes and a lot of programs. How do we start to continue shifting that mindset around the adolescent girls and making sure that she realizes and is afforded opportunities to realize her full potential? And I think this collaborative is very exciting. I want to really start thanking, Kiowa Trust, who started in this journey very, very early with us, and to look now in the second iteration with all these partners, plus the government, on top. Here, I think it's a very, very powerful move. And what is so important about adolescence, it really does cut across the three verticals that Deval was talking about. You see huge issues with completion of secondary school linked to the ideas of adolescent sanitation. Girls not having appropriate toilet facilities or looking at menstrual hygiene management. The governance piece cross-cuts, and that civil society, democracy, and engagement cross-cuts all the work that we're doing around youth, because that's civic participation, ensuring that youth also have a voice. Looking at these youth clubs, youth voices matter significantly. And so I really do feel, while there's been a lot of talk around adolescence, there's also a way that we in Dasra can also look at, are there ways to ensure that these three verticals don't remain verticals, but really talk to each other and share lessons from each other, and ways to incorporate those pieces become very important. So I'll stop here, but again, thank everyone for their participation. And I think what we really have to look at is continuing to move from a lot of the discussion to putting ideas into practice. And I'm very excited for the next phase, when we're able to get out into the field, when we're able to truly engage youth and help them build the models with us for what will be successful for the future of India. So again, thank you very much, and it's a true pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Xerses. It's great to have you and USAID as our constant supporter.